Hey guys, with the release of Pokémon Home, we're finally going to see how good some of the Hisui Pokémon are in OU. Let's get right into it. I start off with my Arcanine, he starts off with Arcanine, I outspeed, go for the close combat, take him out in one shot. He then goes into the Ursaluna, I decide to switch into my Braviary, expecting the ground move, he goes right for the Sword Stance. Activates the Burn Orb, I go for the Esper Wing, do a huge chunk, but he hangs on. I get that speed boost, he goes for the Facade, one-shots Braviary. He takes some damage from the burn. I then decide to give Hisui and Samurott a try, go for the Sacred Sword, take out Ursaluna. I take some Life Orb damage. Big Shield Boy then decides to come in, gets that defense boost. I go right for the Sacred Sword again, do a huge chunk. Take a little bit more Life Orb. He goes right for that Iron Defense, getting that stats up. I go for another Sacred Sword, take out Zamazenta. The little ghostly washing machine decides to come in. I go for the Ceaseless Edge, do a huge chunk, set up some spikes, take a little bit more damage. He completely misses the Will-O-Wisp, gets some lefties back, then decides to forfeit. Good game. At this time I ask you guys to please like, comment, share, and subscribe as it really helps with the channel. Without further ado, let's get into game 2. I start off with Arcanine, they start off with Tauros. I go right for the close combat, one-shot the Bull. He switches into the Delphox, I decide to switch into my Goodra. He goes right for that Nasty Plot, gets that special attack boost. I decide to go for that Nasty Plot, get some special attack boost. He goes for the Fire Blast, knocks me down to my Sash, but it's actually my Zoroark. I then go for the Bitter Malice, one-shot the Delphox. The OG threat, Cloyster, then decides to come in. I go for the Hyper Voice, knock him all the way down to his Sash. He decides to start smashing some shells over there, gets the boost, gets those drops. Goes for an Icicle Spear, takes out my Zoroark. I think Goodra can take the hit, so I decide to bring him in, but he goes for the Icicle Spear, and you'll see shortly. Hits 5 times, takes out the Goodra. I go back into the Arcanine, he goes for a Liquidation, one-shots my dog. I should have did this first, go into Hisui and Samurott. He goes for the Icicle Spear, hits 5 times, Samurott eats that right up, able to retaliate, go with the Sacred Sword, take him out. I take some Life Orb damage, he then goes into the Regieleki, the little electric demon over there, goes for the Thunderbolt, takes out my Samurott. Little Karate Plant Boy decides to come in, he decides to switch into his Zamazenta, gets that shield boost, I go right for the Victory Dance, trying to get some boost of my own. I go for the close combat, take out Zamazenta. Regieleki decides to come back in again for another try, goes for the Terra Ice, I go for the close combat, take him out in one shot. My defenses are getting lower and lower. He then goes into his last mon, the Chiampao, activates the Sword of Ruin, goes for the Sucker Punch, Lilligant just hangs on, goes for the close combat, takes him out. Good game. Alright, let's get into the last game. I go with my Arcanine again, they go with the Cleaver. I go right for the close combat, does barely anything to Cleaver, lower my defenses. He goes for the Stone Axe, one-shots my dog. He gets some of those rocks set up. I then go into my Hisui and Samurott, get a little bit of damage from the rocks, go for the Aqua Cutter, take out the bug over there. He brings in his little Karate Plant Boy over there, he goes for the Axe Kit, one-shots my Samurott. My Braviary with the Paint Job then decides to come in. He misses the Sleep Powder, I decide to retaliate with the Esper Wing, one-shot the Lilligant, get that speed boost. Regieleki decides to show his face in game 3. I go for the Terra Psychic, he goes for the Thunderbolt, Braviary just hangs on. I go for an Esper Wing, take out Regieleki. He then decides to bring out his Hisui and Arcanine. I go for another Esper Wing, do a good chunk, but he hangs on. Get that last speed boost, goes for the Flare Blitz, takes out my bird. Little Goo Boy then decides to come in, takes some rocks damage. He decides to switch into his Sneasler. I go for the Bitter Malice, do a good chunk, but unfortunately reveal that I'm my Zoroark, gets that attack lower. He gets some lefties back, goes for the Dire Claw, does a little bit to me, but puts me to sleep, reveals my illusion. I'm snoring over here, he gets some lefties back. I then decide to switch into the actual Goodra, take a little bit of that rocks damage. He goes for the U-turn, uses that to pivot into his Clodsire. I get some lefties back. Then decide to go for the Astorm, I start to boost up my defenses. He goes for the Earthquake, does a huge chunk to Goodra. I get some lefties back. I then go for the Heavy Slam, do barely anything to him over there. Goes for another Earthquake, takes out my Goodra. He gets some of his lefties back. I then go into my Hisui and Lilligant, take some rocks damage, go for the Victory Dance, trying to clean things up over here. He goes for the Toxic, gives me that bad poison. I get some lefties back, he gets some lefties back, I take some poison. I go for the Ice Beam and do a huge chunk. He decides to set up some Toxic Spikes, I get some lefties, he gets some lefties. I take some poison. I go for another Ice Spinner, take out the Clodsire. Sneasler decides to make one more appearance. I go for the Leaf Blade, take out the Sneasler. Get some of my lefties back, take some poison. He then goes into his last Pokemon, the Arcanine, goes for the Extreme Speed. Lilligant just hangs on, but I completely missed the close combat. Take some lefties and some poison, eventually go down. I then go into my last mon, the Zoroark. He goes for the Extreme Speed because unfortunately, my opponent told me here, he's Choice Banded. This allows me to win the game. Good game. And that's the video. Let me know what you guys think of the Pokemon Home release and which Pokemon should I try next. Please stay tuned for future content. Peace!